This evening, the Southern Stars look to a debutante to press their advantage in the Ashes Test. Jess Jonathan saved the tourists from collapse and will resume on 95 when day 2 gets underway tonight. It's good to have your company. Australian all-rounder Jess Jonathan will be aiming to make a century on debut when the Women's Ashes Test resumes at Canterbury tonight. At stumps on day 1, Australia was 8 for 268, with Jonathan unbeaten on 95.
After receiving her first Test cap, 22-year-old law student Jess Jonathan spent more than 3 hours in the middle, applying herself with a focus that surprised even her.
I think there's a first time for everything, I guess. I'd like to think that the studies helped me with concentrating for long periods of time.
Australia had crashed to 5 for 99 in the one-off test, with England swing bowler Anya Shrubsole taking 4 wickets, including the prized scalps of Meg Lanning and Elise Perry.
Catch that. That's inside edge and onto the pad.
Jonathan and Alyssa Healy steadied the innings with a 77-run stand.
Given some air and crashed through cover.
An unbroken 8th wicket partnership of 62 between Kristen Beams and Jonathan further frustrated the home team.
Well, gone after that.
The left-hander was 5 short of a memorable century at stumps on day 1.
I think has finished as Australia's day.
In the wake of the men's Ashes loss, the regeneration of the Australian squad has started, with 3 players set to make their one-day debuts later this month. Spinner Ashton Agar, Queensland batsman Joe Burns and Victorian all-rounder Marcus Stoinis have been named in a squad that features 6 players who didn't take part in the World Cup.
When you're in the Aussie A setup, you know you're probably close, but yeah, it's still very exciting.
Australia will play one-day games against Ireland and England after the Ashes series. Duncan Huntsdale, ABC News.
Australia will need to overcome the All Blacks, a hostile Auckland crowd and a 29-year losing streak at Eden Park if it is to score a rare Bledisloe Cup victory on Saturday. After the team's victory over New Zealand in Sydney, Australia has a chance of winning back the Cup for the first time since 2002. But New Zealand hasn't been beaten by the Wallabies at Eden Park since 1986. Australian captain Stephen Moore says his side will benefit from the challenge with the World Cup looming.
We don't have any more home games this year, so we've got to get used to this type of thing, don't we? So we've got to get used to playing away from home and be comfortable in that environment and be, tight as a team when we get over there.
The squad will fly out for Auckland tomorrow. Former Wallaby and Grandstand rugby expert Ross Reynolds joins me in the studio to look ahead to this weekend's Bledisloe Cup decider. Ross, the injured Ma Nonu, said the All Blacks were out-passioned, which is unusual for them, but at Eden Park you wouldn't expect that to be the same. There is a window here, isn't there, for the Wallabies, who were great last week?
Well, to say they're out-passioned is a very rare statement indeed, and it won't happen at Eden Park. So expect a very different side. Last year we drew 12-all, then went over and got beaten 51-20, and I don't think the score differential will be that great this time. I think this team has got a little bit of a different substance under Michael Cheika. They're a lot mentally tougher, and their set-piece performance last weekend was outstanding.
We'll get onto that in a moment, but it is a fortress. 15 straight test matches they've lost. You were last there in 86. You're on the bench. They do grow the extra leg at Eden Park.
Well, they haven't lost to Australia since 86, as you said, and they haven't lost since 94. They lost to France. So that's 33 games. I think there's an 84% win factor at that ground. It's probably the greatest fortress of sporting grounds in the world. So it is a difficult place to win for a very good reason. And but Australia, they've got a good chance. You know, they've got the set piece to worry the All Blacks.
Now, you confessed, I think, some surprise that they went with both Pocock and Hooper in the side. It turned out to be a winning move when you look at the likes of the form on the other side. And Richie McCaw, how's he going?
Look, it was a big gamble of Cheika to put the 2 shorter back rows. It put a lot of pressure on the line-out, but they only lost 3 line-outs, just 2 before and 1.5 after half-time. So, but they turned over at the breakdown 17-10, so that factor in terms of playing the two shorter players was a huge success because not only did they win the breakdown contest and the All Blacks will be questioning their selection of McCaw, Kano and Reid, all tall players. Do they pick a Sam Cane, a shorter back row, to match it with these short back rows of Pocock and Hooper? That's a big question mark to ask as they head into a World Cup. Do they stick with McCaw, who's the captain, or do they dare bench him?
Surely it couldn't be a question mark for the record breaker. He'd be a lay-down misère, wouldn't he?
Well, they've rested him to keep him fresh for this World Cup. Look, he's a great captain. He's a master manipulator of referees, and in close contests that you're going to run into at a World Cup away, that sort of advantage is huge. So I suspect he'll hit back big time this weekend, and they'll get a bit of front point ball, and he'll look a lot better.
You touched on it. The scrum, the set piece for Australia was good. It'll need to be, again, twice over.
It'll need to be outstanding. Australia only had 3 put-ins, so only 3 times were they, striking and having the pressure of a full pack against them. So they didn't have to win a lot of their own ball, but this weekend will be a different scenario. Possession was like 56 to 44, so they really did dominate. And the thing about Pocock and Hooper that's not commented on is their ability to get over the gain line as first receiver. Both players were able to get through that really good rush defence of the All Blacks and gain ground in close and give the Australian momentum for the halfback to feed the ball.
Now, personnel, individuals, there's been a little mix-up in selection here and there by the coach, which has been to Australia's advantage. Who's going to start off at half this time?
Well, he's kept the players guessing, and I think that's why the players are so intense. They don't know who's going to be picked until the end of the week, until the team is announced. So they really train hard. They're fighting for spots, and that creates this great competitive spirit at training, to train really hard, to impress the coach. I don't know whether I'm going to be picked. I want to be picked. And, that keeps that fierce competition right through training, and it's working. He's changed 6 or 7 players every test match for the 3 so far. I think he might bring Henry Spade in. I think Nick Phipps will survive. I think he did, by his own admission, have a few poor passes, gave away a silly penalty, got sin bin. So he didn't finish the game well, and Nick White came on and looked a champion, kicked a long-range penalty then scored a great try for 10 points to win the game. But I think starting's a different ball game, and I think he'll go back to Phipps.
What about the 10? Who's going to start there, Foley or Tamua?
That's a great conundrum there, because Foley didn't have his best game again. Outside Phipps was getting a bit of rubbish, so probably go to Tamua. Tamua came on and really added a lot of starch. Physically very strong at 10, and I thought Giddo outside him was outstanding. He really didn't just tackle Sonny Bill, he belted him, and was more physical than I thought he could be. And with Tamua at 10, that gives no weakness at that 10-12 channel where all the traffic tends to go.
One area of great strength for the Wallabies, the back end of the game in all the test matches so far this season. The last 15 minutes, they were good. They didn't choke, and off the bench they were brilliant.
They're winning the last 20 minutes by quite a bit. The first 2 games was like 29-0, so it was really incredible. And then on the weekend we saw them score the last 10 points. So that last 20 minutes and the subs have really had an impact. White, Skelton, all very good off the bench and making ground. Tamua had made a big difference. So I think Cheika's talked about those subs having an impact. And the big question marks, the All Blacks, their bench was just unsighted, and that'll be a big pressure point for this weekend, that their subs will come on and want to make an impression, because the World Cup team has not been finalised.
Are you going to be brave enough to select the Wallabies, Ross?
No, I won't at Eden Park. It's a hurdle too far. But it'll be a lot closer than last year. And if Australia do get close, that's a huge confidence boost going into the World Cup. And as Steve Moore said there, these close games played away is a great preparation for the World Cup, because these are the games you have to win.
Ross Reynolds, thanks very much for joining us. What a weekend ahead.
Fantastic. I'll be glued to the TV.
Collingwood forward Travis Cloke is pressing for selection after missing the past 3 weeks of the AFL season with a calf strain. The Magpies are preparing to take on Sydney at the SCG on Friday night. Cloke trained this morning and impressed the coach.
He's had 2 really strong weeks of training on the track. then we'll speak to the medicos, and if he pulls up well and we get the tick there, well, I won't be stopping him from playing.
Lance Franklin didn't train for Sydney and is likely to miss another week with a back injury. But Geelong says Steve Johnson is certain to return from suspension to play his 250th game against Hawthorn on Saturday night. Australia will be looking to cement its place in the semi-finals of the World Netball Cup when it takes on South Africa in Sydney tonight. Australia was back to its aggressive best last night in beating England by 10 goals. Even with the game seemingly in its keeping, Australia attacked hard.
Oh, she read it, and Clark's hurt. Oh, that looked dramatic.
We're really happy that we came away with the win against England, but we've had a look at the game and know that there's certainly a couple of things and small fix-ups that we can do against South Africa tonight, against Wales, and then leading into the finals.
Australia has never lost to South Africa in 31 meetings. 5 months after competing in her first para-triathlon race, Katie Kelly is already proving to be one of the world's best. The 40-year-old and her Olympic guide, Olympic silver medalist Michaeli Jones, are now pushing to secure qualification for next year's Rio Paralympics. Amanda Shalala reports.
There's something about you. There's something about you. There's something about you. There's something about you.
Katie Kelly was born with type 2 Usher syndrome, resulting in hearing and vision loss which disintegrates over time. But she's embraced the opportunity that's given her.
I've always loved triathlon and participated over the years and done different challenges, and in January this year I had to see my ophthalmologist as I have a degenerative eye condition, and they confirmed that I was legally blind, and you know that was bad news, but I thought, I wonder if I can participate in para-triathlon now that my eyesight is at that level. And I ran Triathlon Australia, and they said send us your times, and apparently my times were good enough.
How did you have that frame of mind as soon as finding out that you're legally blind to immediately switch and think, okay, I'm going to make the best of this and try and go to the Paralympics? How do you do that?
With something like that you don't have control over, there's certainly a profound sense of I really need to make the most of what I've got. And this is a great thing about our country too, I think, is that there are a lot of opportunities, and I've always been one to, seek those opportunities where they are, and I think the glass is always half full for me, I like to take that a proactive approach.
Kelly's been joined on the journey by a legend of the sport, with Sydney Olympic silver medalist Michaeli Jones as her guide.
We just gel really well on a personal level, but also you start to realise why someone like her still is as exceptional as she is. It's the attention to detail, the way that she prepares for races, and so I'm really relishing in that and enjoying, having MJ as my guide.
After just a few days together, they won their first World Para-Triathlon event in Yokohama in May, and again finished on top of the podium in Italy last month.
It's about really communication, working together as a team and being comfortable with each other. And so, for example, in the swim, we've really got to get our timing right, and there's a couple of head knocks as we swim along. And on the tandem, I guess that's probably a bigger challenge. I'm very much relying on her. My head is down still. I can't be up looking around seeing what's going on, so it's trusting her and trusting that she's got control, and being the world professional athlete that she is, I generally don't have a problem with that. She's great. And then on the run, we're tethered together, and she guides me through the course. And so we're it's not a lot of chat, but just small chat in terms of just, pointing things out to me and, motivating me as I go through the race.
Within 3 months of competing on the circuit, Kelly's moved into the top 10 in the rankings, a position she needs to hold to qualify for the World Championships in Chicago next month and then go on to next year's Rio Paralympics.
I'm pouring all my resources and energy into it, and, no shortcuts in this sport, and just you know, really want to put myself in the best possible position to not only qualify but to do well at Rio at the Paralympics, and also for you know, children around Australia to know that who have a disability, that there are amazing opportunities and there are pathways in our sports to allow children of all levels, ages, disabilities to participate and to achieve at the highest level.
I'm so electrical.
And that's Grandstand for now. Don't forget you can also watch us on iView and the Grandstand website. See you soon.